Well, Jay, you have just written a book called The Mind of God, and really the intersection that you were exploring is neurobiology and faith. How do you see this?
Well, I think that we have to separate this stereotype that we have of religion versus the sort of conceptualization of when we say religiosity, because I think we all understand that formalized religions have mostly been ideologically bent on separating people of different faiths and have hurt us more than they've given us the gift of what religion should have given us in its pure form, which in my mind is the recognition that we're more than just physical beings, that there's something beyond just our physicality. And I think that as a neuroscientist, my concern is that when we, if we look at society and the trends both in science and also in technology, where we believe there's such a thing as called artificial intelligence, that completely does not exist, by the way. The whole thing is a giant scam. It really is. There's no such thing as artificial intelligence at all. And I'd be happy to debate any AI people in the room to tell them why.
Siri, do you agree?
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect. But what do I mean by that? Is a couple of issues. One is that I think that we are on a slippery slope to define ourselves purely as biological beings, and that has very profound social implications. As Emily brought up, I think that even if we ourselves think of ourselves as being only biological, and there's no value beyond our physicality, then the rates of nihilism go up not only personally, but actually sociologically as well. A Korean missile goes off, we only kill 5 million people. It's only 5 million people. I mean, we think about these numbers as if there's not lives behind each person. And I think that's my concern as a pseudo-philosopher, because I'm not a philosopher, I'm a scientist, that we have to be very careful when we talk about these terms about what it means to be human and having a soul. And if we dismiss these outright without really understanding what we're dismissing, and what we're dismissing is the sense the debate is between materialism and is there something other than materialism that characterizes life. And I personally believe that life is not purely material. That there are phenomenological aspects of life that are immaterial. Thought is, we can't quantify thought. We can't quantify emotion. We try, but we can't do it. And when we talk about the self, we don't know even what that self is. We say, well, the self is the interoception of feelings and thoughts. Well, what is feeling? What is thinking?
Well, okay. So I want to make a couple of distinctions here. First of all, I don't think of myself, for instance, as just a biological thing. I think of myself as a biological and especially a social being. As I said earlier, I think that meaning and purpose come out of social interactions with other people, not just from our basic biology. But of course, we're social in part because we're a particular type of biological organism. Right. We're a social primate, species of primate to begin with. And then we invented these all really complicated things that we call culture. That basically no other animal has even remotely close to what right. we have. Right. I think that is all fine, and it goes already well beyond basic biology. Right. When I get a little bit nervous and when people talk about non-physical stuff and so on and so forth, now you can say, but isn't that arrogant to say that it doesn't exist? I don't say it doesn't exist. I say, how do you know that it exists? To me, as a scientist, first, and then a philosopher next, is whenever somebody makes an ontological claim, a claim about existence, my basic question is, how do you know? Why do you think that, right? So my position is not that the soul, however you want to define it, doesn't exist, or that the supernatural doesn't exist, or that the incorporeal doesn't exist. My position is simply that we've come up with a pretty good view of how things work, incomplete as it is, and partly ignorant as it is, without invoking any of that. And when you do invoke any of that, then I think the burden of proof is on you to say, well, here's why I think there is something beyond the corporeal, something beyond the social, something beyond, something material. There may or may not be. I just don't see the reason to invoke it. I'm basically using Occam's razor here. Cut to the minimum number of entities and minimum number of hypotheses necessary to explain things. You're right that we still don't know a lot about feelings. We don't know a lot about the self and so on and so forth. But that is what in philosophy is called an argument from ignorance, right? So just because we don't know, that doesn't mean that we're not licensed to just start making up explanations that don't really explain anything. When I went to catechism as a Catholic, for instance, as a young little Catholic, my priest kept explaining to me that things come, things exist because God is loving and because God wanted to do this and that or the other. And then I asked him at one point the question, and how do you know that? And his answer was mystery of faith. I said, no, that's not an answer. That's not an explanation. That's just telling me believe what I say because I say it.